Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering Netflix's revival of the gag anime, The Disastrous Life of Saiki K.
So, Reawakened. This revival reveals what happened after the original series and adds some extra episodes that take place before the original finale, which is odd. And it's strange since it was thought that the entire season was taking place after the series.
Yeah.
And it ended up being only the final episode, and we were so confused.
Yeah, and when they showed them, like, wait a minute, why are the powers back? Why is this back, that, and the other? Because of how the original series ended.
And why was he being rude to them and not
like,
wanting to be around them? But it was different because he wasn't quite that rude in the first one.
Right.
He was just kind of like he was irritated.
He just wanted to be left alone. That was it.
But he never called them dumb or stupid, and so that
Except
was
for Nendo.
That was a little different this time.
Yeah.
That he was that harsh.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't in the original.
Yeah, unless they were saying it took place like the beginning of the series, like season 1 or something.
That's possible.
Because it was very odd seeing it, because that second year, if you see the original show, you know how it ended with everything being fixed, so you would think that would go take place where it left off, but it doesn't.
And you can also watch our podcast, which we did on the original series.
Right.
That tells you about the entire series.
Right. Seasons
before it was purchased from Funimation.
Right. And now Netflix is in charge of it. And the good news is that this also has a English dub.
Yes.
The unfortunate part is that it's none of the original voice actors from Funimation. Instead, they hired all Netflix voice actors.
Now, we're happy that they have, jobs and employment, and it's great. But we really do miss Jerry Jewell and the rest of the bunch. We miss that sarcasm, that dry wit. We miss that perfectness of his voice and transmitting exactly how Saiki
Yes,
felt.
because some people were kind of put off by the voices because they could tell instantly that Saiki didn't sound like Saiki.
Right.
A lot of the characters didn't sound right. I think they were trying so hard to imitate the original voices that they sounded very, very off. And for a while, it kind of distracts you because it's like they're really trying to imitate the voice, but they're trying so hard. It's like, and it sort of, like I said, it sort of distracts you, but you do get used to it eventually.
And that being said, we know that Cal McCarley has a lot of experience with other Netflix series and a lot of voiceover acting for anime. So we understand why they chose him,
right,
to replace Jerry Jewell. From what you explained to me, a lot of times they're contracted with a specific studio, and they can't work outside of that studio. Is that right?
It's almost like the same thing with Canada, where you have to have a card to work, outside of Canada, or have Americans work on a Canadian show unless you got citizenship. So for here, there wasn't a plot once again. The last episode does take place after the end of the series, and they're wondering why are his powers coming back when it's supposed to be gone.
And it sounds like his brother, as usual, is involved in this in some way, and really knew this was going to happen, and basically lied to him in the last series.
Right, and what's funny is that before this gets to this episode, I think they were trying to replicate, the humor and stuff from the original show. And I'm not sure if they are taking, like, chapters they didn't cover in the manga and they did it, or were these, like, original ideas? Because it sounds like to me these were Netflix original ideas.
Right.
You can tell there's a difference because the humor is very different. With the original, it was always really quick and witty, and everything is thrown at you, and it's just weird, crazy crap one after the other because everyone's a lunatic. And here, it's slowed down, like, severely.
Like maybe they wanted to give a viewer an opportunity to catch up, which we didn't need because we could keep pace with it, just fine originally.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing you'll notice is that the humor is different. Not just in the speed, but also what they tell. Like, they started doing more American jokes and puns and stuff rather than sticking to the formula of, making fun of themselves, advertising themselves, and the world around them, being self-aware that they're in a show. It's the 5th anniversary of the show. That's the closest thing they got.
Right, and they also do a lot of name dropping from other animes, which we know from the original it was more Shonen Jump mangas.
Right.
But now they're taking from My Hero Academia and
Star Wars
and just a lot of pop culture references and popular current anime, and didn't understand why they chose to do that.
Right. Yeah,
maybe because they're no longer with Funimation.
Right. And the joke was for that, which was really, really clever, they did their own advertisements. Mm-hmm. The most they did outside that was they would probably cross over with two other Shonen Jump stories that were in the same vein of the genre as Saiki. And they actually had a crossover this time, but you know what the heck was going on, and they were trying to take over the show, so the joke started to make no sense. Mm-hmm. And then when they did reference, like I said, they only referenced the regular stuff, like with Naruto or My Hero Academia. And then they referenced Star Wars, they referenced Marvel, they referenced this, that, and the other. I'm like, why are they? Most of the jokes now are compiled of referencing everyone else's work, right. And that's it. They're not even coming up with their own jokes. They even have one point where Kuswa was getting all these random powers that didn't make any sense, and he said, okay, it looks like someone just took a box and had a bunch of random powers and decided to apply each of them every second, and then he went in the box and started picking out which one to do that would fix it, because they were literally, they just threw everything at you.
Right. Now, the last thing that we want to mention that we weren't quite pleased with before we get into what did work is they took some of the vivid colors out of it. Saiki's hair wasn't as pink. We were like, it's not as vibrant, and the green's not as green, and you could tell a difference in the actual intensity of the colors, which we missed because that's part of what really made it gorgeous, are these really vivid colors, not only in Saiki's hair but in the uniforms and the background.
Right.
So it was actually slightly duller, which kind of took away from
the fun.
What made it fun.
Yeah, and that's what was the thing. I think they wanted to tone down, which was very odd considering that it has this underground fan base for just being wacky, crazy, goofy, and yet still captures the feeling of you just want to be left alone and no one leaves you alone.
Right.
And definitely bring up, they also have 2 new characters in here too.
Now, what did work right for us? One, we were very thrilled, happy, and grateful to Netflix for bringing the show back, and we will continue to watch, and we'll continue to see Netflix grow and the voice actors grow and get us more comfortable with them and knowing whom they are. What worked for us is, again, besides the coming back, one is actually the voice actors for the mom and dad do fit. I mean, she sounds almost exactly like the mom, the original voice actor for the mom, and he sounds almost exactly like the dad, and they have that enthusiasm and quirkiness and craziness, and both of those voice actors really are perfect fitting for the mom and dad, and that works. The second one is the brother, the voice actor that's replacing the original one. He works. Kusuke? Kusuki. Whatever his name is, we don't care because the brother is a douche. But his voice actor works for that character. So I think those were well fitting. Another thing that worked was the animation still good. Although, as we said, it's not as vibrant and the character's slightly different. It's still the same type of animation, and they didn't change it altogether, so we're really happy about that. Also, the episodes stay the same length. So we weren't cheated out of, getting some shorter episodes as well as a shorter season. So we did have the same length. The cards that they would have in there, not as great as the ones in the original series.
They were just kind of silly, but that was it.
Right, but they did include some cards. And there were some parts, some episodes, I think it was episode 4, that we laughed the hardest at.
Yeah, I think because they had their Yu-Gi-Oh reference and they were battling with these little creatures, and only Saiki was seeing them come alive and fighting each other. And he said, "How is no one else seeing this? Why is no one else seeing it? You see that they're alive, right? Coming out of the table."
And another one that worked for us is the return of the friend, his childhood friend, who knew he was psychic all along. He finally told him the truth, and he was sitting in his room. He's like, "Oh, so your powers are coming back," and that fit. I mean, that was funny. That still worked. It was great. And it made us laugh a lot when that friend was there. One other thing we want to mention that we found odd, it wasn't that it didn't work, but it was odd, is Terahashi was just like all over the place in the original, but in here she made like a couple cameo appearances, she
Right.
and her freaky brother, and then that's it.
Yeah, which was odd because, she was always after Saiki, like, and that's what was funny. But the thing was, they did a little bit of a twist with the last episode, and he had to get used to not having the powers because he couldn't hear people coming by, so he was getting startled all the time. He's like, oh, why didn't you tell me that you were coming? Like, oh, yeah, I can't hear other people's thoughts. He didn't, he couldn't, levitate, he couldn't do a bunch of things, so he had to get used to the fact that, he had to do everything manually, so he's going to get tired. But there was one thing he said that he didn't have anymore was the x-ray vision, so he wasn't seeing skin and bones from everybody. Because he said that he couldn't see, why people were always fawning over her and stuff because all he saw was that. But he didn't have that on. He said, oh, now I see why. And then like, yeah, she actually looks great. And like, okay, you need to calm down. What's wrong with you now? It's wearing off.
And another thing we missed is that Kaido is the one who can see the dead people.
I think so because
we did
because there was one that was whose name is like Psycho. Well, it sounds like Psycho, who's the rich kid.
Guy.
Okay,
right.
yeah.
So we did miss that he's in here, but we missed where he was always trying to bribe the departed into getting to see the girls' underwear and stuff. It was hilarious, all the crap, stupid stuff he would do just to get them to do his favors, and that was actually missing. And it was a part that was so hilarious and funny. It was weird that he wasn't being a perv. It was weird that he was just in here, and it's like, but the thing that made your character hilarious was your perviness with people who pass on, helping you get to see the panties and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of them thought he was so pervy that they refused to do it. That was gone.
And perhaps they didn't want to offend some viewers, and maybe the stuff with Mineta was so,
but it was funny
rampant.
because even the departed thought he was pervy and was like, no, dude, I'm not going to do that for you. There's no way. And that was hilarious because it's like, look, not only do the living think you're a perv, but those who have passed on think you are so pervy that they won't help you either.
Right.
And it was hilarious. Like, no matter what he did, it was like, no, dude, I'm going to go. Or, what's wrong with you? Or, that was hilarious that he couldn't catch a break with the living or the dead.
Right.
And it was gone. And that was missed because Saiki, of course, knew what was going on. And he was like, you really are willing to go that far just to see a pair of panties. It was funny because he never got to see them. So it couldn't be offensive because it never played out. But one time with this older man who departed, and he was really desperate, and he did it for him. And you saw like maybe I think it was a 3-second shot.
Yeah.
And he was disappointed because that's all he got to see. And that was it. But I thought it was hilarious that he was like this, but when it came down to it, when Saiki really needed him, as we know in the end of the first series, he was there and he helped him. And he became one of Saiki's closest friends, knowing the truth about him. Right. So I missed that part that made this character unique and made this character the character he was. It was like he wasn't the same character. And the same with Jet Black.
Yeah, Jet Black win. And he was match. Yeah, all of the quirkiness for a lot of the characters, for some reason, was just removed from them altogether, and I'm not sure why. Maybe Netflix felt they need to make these changes because they didn't fit with what Netflix has, because they make anime differently. Maybe they thought some of their behavior and stuff would be offensive or too much, which is weird because they allowed some things in there, and then they didn't allow some things in there, so you don't know what was their limit.
Well, we don't know what happened, but I tell you what, we're going to hang in with you and see what happens next. We're not going anywhere. We love Saiki K. It's a brilliant show, and maybe you just got your training wheels on and trying to see and figure out what works for you and your network versus what worked for Funimation. So we'll hang in there to see what happens.
Right. And then we also, as I mentioned, they had 2 new characters. They had this new student, to another transfer student. Saiki said, how many more transfer students are you going to get? It looks like we're out of ideas already. Who had a very, very horrible, horrendous bad luck. Then literally everything she did, everywhere she went, she had bad luck. And if she was around somebody, there was a chance they probably wouldn't live to see the next day.
And it really became just too much. It became overbearing. It became like a punchline that went on way too long and needed to have stopped 20 minutes ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then there was another one who was a new teacher whose face, for some reason, was permanently looking like he was very perverted, but the joke was he looked perverted, but he actually was generally a very nice guy and really wanted to teach an opportunity and get along with the students. It was trying to be a fantastic teacher, but because his face looks like he's always looking at the girls, everyone thought he was a creep and didn't want to be near him. And it took like 3 episodes to get used to it. And that was the entire joke.
And what was weird about that is it takes place again during the first 5 episodes, which we're not sure when they're supposed to take place, but these characters were not in the end of the first, in the 3rd season of the original series, so you don't know how this works.
Yeah, it's very confusing at that point. So,
but if you love Saiki K like we do, and you watch the Reawakened series, let us know what you think in the comments below. Are you looking forward to a 2nd season? Are you going to hang in there like us and let them get their training wheels off and fly and give us what we really love about this show?
Right.
Let us know in the comments below.
Yes, and be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on new podcasts from Paws.
And finally, let us know, what do you think of the new voice actors? Are you okay with them? Do you miss the originals? Do you think that, again, we'll get used to them the longer this show goes on?
Right. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace. Yada, yada.
Yada, yada.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you later on in the